want to talk today again about winter leagues, and I want to talk about the year following my very successful season in 1981. One of the things about match fishing is that the drawbag influences your success, and having confidence and drawing well and fishing the right methods, the right baits, with the right gear should lead to success. Now with the drawbag, it should always be something that's left to chance. And what that means is most of the time you're going to get an average peg. Sometimes you're going to get a flyer, a really good peg, a winning peg. And sometimes you're going to get a no-hope peg, even a no-hope section, and there's nothing you can do about it. And mostly this drawing ability is fairly random and it evens itself out. And you know, if you fish 40 matches in a season, in theory you should have had a few flyers, lots of average pegs, a handful of really duff pegs, and it just keeps going. This fairly odd ones that are a bit different, but mostly somewhere in the middle. But any match angler who's fished for decades, and that's what I did, will know that once in a blue moon, once in a while, you get a succession of absolutely dire draws. You get the opposite, you get the flyers, and you get it match after match after match. You're on a real run. Your confidence is sky high. You're in tune with the fishing. You've got the right methods, and you're winning. You may win several matches in a row or frame, and you really have a golden run. But you can have this really dire dip. Your confidence goes to rock bottom. Nothing you can do goes right. In practice you might still be catching fish, but in the matches all is hopeless. And this weirdly is what happened to me way back in 1981. There was nothing to suggest it in the summer. We'd had some open matches on our northern ponds. I'd done okay on there. I didn't win any, but I sort of framed once or twice, and one or two other matches on their team events. Framed again. One team match I'd won against Dorchester with 15 pounder, that was a tiny little fish, 1300 fish. I'd won a Barclays match on Whitley Park with a weight of crucians that I've yet to beat anywhere, over 60 pounds, nice 75 pegger. All was looking good. And then I went on holiday on the Thames in sort of mid-September for 2 weeks. The first day I was up there, I fished an open on Medley. Drew what I thought was a good peg. It was a peg I'd pleasure fished many times, had 20 to 25 pound at times. But that day it was full of gudgeon, little gudgeon. And I quickly switched to fishing a short pole with a few maggots. My main attack was going to be a hempen caster, but there was so many gudgeon, it didn't matter where I put a cast, I caught a gudgeon, so can't beat them, join them. Went on the pole, got 8 pounds of gudgeon and won the section, same weight that won the next section down, also won with 8 pound of gudgeon. Didn't frame, it wasn't far outside the frame, about 14-15 pounds won it. And I had a good holiday. I caught anything up to 25 pound of roach and chub. There was a lot of rain the second weekend I was up there, which was the weekend of the World Championship at Luddington near Stratford. And being at Oxford, it was about an hour's drive to get up there. So I went and watched both days. Of course, we had a lot of rain on the Saturday night, and the match was flooded off pretty much on the Sunday. But my fishing the following week was good. The Medley ran off fast on the Monday. Caught lots of fish all week, good fishing. And the following weekend we had some more rain, and the river was distinctly iffy on the Saturday. I caught about £6. There was actually a national on the Thames that day. I was on Medley, and the rain had been Friday night, and the river was suddenly tougher. The day before, the couple of days before, really bagged up, but that cold water going in, although the river hadn't coloured up, the Thames water had dropped the level ready for the flood coming down. And on the Sunday I fished the Thames Championship representing Barclays, and the river was up. I was up at Radcott, and the river was up a foot or so, and it was being run off pretty hard. I ended up on the tip catching little roach and gudgeon and dace, stuff like this, for about 12 ounces. Now there was a tragedy on that match. Sadly, an angler on the next section down, which might be Clanfield, I don't know, fell in just below the lock and drowned, and that section packed up in the match, which was quite upsetting at the time. A lot of people in my section, it was a real downer. People were far less worried about what they'd caught and wondering what to do. But like I say, that whole section was cancelled. Although there was about 90 anglers in there, they had no result. They didn't weigh in or anything. They just cancelled it. And so I felt a bit, I don't know, downhearted by that. Sort of a big bash to my confidence. What I'd caught, the 12 ounces, was neither here nor there. It wasn't diabolical. It didn't fish well at all with that floodwater, although it was dropping. It was very dirty. The following week, Wareham were back in the Winter League, but this time they would be in the Hants Wilson Dorset League. The Avon Valleys was sort of regrouping, if you like. Our anglers were fed up with the distances we were having to travel, so a much more local league, although a couple of the matches would be at Pewsey, so it's still 60 miles each way. But we'd have matches on the Stour, and one would be at Wareham, so it's a slightly bigger league, or it was the proper size, so it's, I believe it was 10 teams of 12. I'd been away, like I say, up on the Thames, but my teammates had gone and practiced at Pewsey, and they said, "Oh, it's lovely, Mark, you'll love it. It's just like Nordin. You're just catching little roach and skimmers like this. You just go in with a pinky and feed a few squats, a few pinkies, 22 hook, little canal float. We weren't fishing the long pole then. And you'll just catch 2 or 3 pound, just fish with plenty of finesse. I'm no canal angler, but I'm not the world's worst either. So, like I say, my teammates had been up there the weekend before and said, yeah, it's fine. And I drew my peg, and I'm feeling a bit down now. And I don't think there was anything wrong with the peg. What was wrong was that run of bad luck was about to start big time. First cast, had a little roach, ounce and a bit. But as I went to swing it in, a jack pike swirled. That swim was absolutely stone dead from that point onwards. The angler at the next peg was then affected exactly the same way, almost immediately. This pike somehow killed both of our swims. My very last cast of the match, I caught another roach or a skimmer, and I ended up weighing in 3 ounces. The angler next to me weighed 2 ounces, and the other anglers in the section caught from sort of half a pound up to, I can't remember, a couple of pounds. Not fantastic. Generally, the canal didn't fish too bad. Wareham didn't do that well. We weren't a canal team. We had very little experience on that canal. And 4 pounds or so, 4 or 5, about 5 pounds won it, and 3 pounds was about 10th. Well, I was really disheartened by now, and I said to Phil, I'm going to be absolutely blunt here. I don't want to fish these until I get back to that form of drawing decent pegs. And he said, okay, he accepted that. The winter leagues continued. Wareham actually won one on the lower Stour, came equal first. And although they'd come 7th in the first match, they clawed their way back up. There was another match at Pewsey, but that was much worse. It was one with a single £4 carp, and just 10 ounces was 6th, which is at 120 anglers. That's not a great match. There was a match on Wareham, which I can't remember what won it. There were catches of dace and grayling. That was on the non-tidal stretch. May have been a couple of sections on the tidal. But it fished fairly well, although I'm sure if I'd fished it, I'd have drawn the worst peg going. I also fished a club match about that time, a week later on the non-tidal Froome. And I did get 2 grayling. Now, 2 grayling on the Froome in those days would generally give you £1, maybe £1.50, maybe £2. So they'd be sort of £0.5, 12 ounces, £1 a piece. No, I got 2 grayling for 1¼ ounces because they were just like that. I caught something, but not very good. I've looked through my match results. There aren't any for that period. So whether I fished a Christmas match and caught nothing, I don't know. That's possible. Wareham continued their way in the Winter League. Doing okay. They clawed their way up. And after Christmas, there was the final match. And I think we must have been struggling for a team. And I'd had some fantastic, started to get some good roach fishing, not fantastic yet. And I'd also been practicing on Norden, which was a new venue that we had for a couple of years. And we still had it at that point. So I thought, well, while I'm not match fishing, I'm going to go up there and finesse my methods on the pole and the whip and get better. And no one else is doing this. So, and we had a match due up there in about the February. Anyway, this final match was in January and we'd had a load of snow. And that snow had melted. So the Stour on the Sunday, so I've been dragooned into the team. The Stour was rising fast, full of snow broth. Well, the Stour with snow broth is not a pretty sight. And I drew a section known as Hardings, which is above Longham Bridge. It's, although you can fish the north bank, back in those days we fished the south bank, and there would be 30 pegs, 3 sections. You can't fish it anymore, it's all overgrown and it hasn't been available as a fishery for decades. Back then, on a good day in the winter, it was pretty dire. You were lucky to catch a fish. I drew what looked like a promising slack until I started to try and plumb the depth and test the float. Under the surface, and the water was like milky tea, that far under the surface, everywhere you went was a bramble patch. You can't catch fish out of bramble patches. There's nothing there. There's not a hope. You couldn't even fish. It looked all right, but you couldn't even fish a foot deep and hope for a bleak. Not that there were many bleak or anything else. And Nigel Turner won the section with holding a still bait very, very close in for a bullhead. Meanwhile, during the match, the river's still coming up. The gates are wide open at Longham and the river is ripping through. My swims, so I'm just fed up with putting hooks on, trying to find anywhere to fish in it and waste of time. And the water in the field behind us is gradually coming round and getting deeper. And me and 3 or 4 others, we thought, enough of this. And we had waders on. And we managed to wade through this field, and we're talking over your knees, and the river's still coming up with all our gear, match gear. And we got out. The week or so after that, when that snow water went, I had the best big roach fishing I've ever had at Wareham. So that really did set off the conditions being right. I could catch fish all right, but not off the worst peg ever. But if you like, that was the bottom. That was the absolute rock bottom of my drawing that autumn and winter. I will mention the result. I don't remember much of it, but there are three things that happened. First of all, the match was won up at Wimborne on the deep slow bit with a single roach that weighed over £2. That's pretty good. Second was £1 of bleak, and there were a few small weights of bleak and a few single dace caught. Maybe the odd small roach, I don't know, not very much. And Wareham had 3 people weigh in a single dace that each weighed, coincidentally, 3 ounces. And they all got second in their sections. So we had 27 points. That's out of a possible 120. Wareham won the team event easily that day. They were the only team with 3 weighers. And I don't know what was second, but probably only a couple of weighers. There were very, very few people weighed in, maybe 10 or a dozen, maybe 15 at the most, but not very many. And Wareham did end up runners-up in the Winter League that season, which was the second year running that they had a runners-up after the year before. The final postscript for the season was that we did have a club match on Norden in about the middle of February after my fantastic roach catches for a week or 10 days. I had some stomach bug. I was extremely ill for a week or 2, and then I was better, which was good. But where I've been practicing Norden over the winter, just going up there for 2 or 3 hours and trying getting the finesse, and a lot of people were still in Wareham were still fishing sort of wagglers on a whip, which is all right when they're suicidal, but when it was tough, and we're talking tiny little bites, almost like canal fishing really. I'd started to fish the little canal floats on a whip and learning, and in that match in February I scratched around 60 fish for £1.6. Not a lot, but enough for second place. And I thought at that moment, I'm back to normal. That's a reasonable draw. I've had a reasonable result. I've come second. It's not a very big match, maybe a dozen people, 15 people, but it's all gone. That's it. We're back to normal now. And the following season, my form was back. I was drawing normal, winning matches. Not long into that season, I had those 2 wins in a week on the Thames, which I've already told you about in one of the previous videos. I won other matches on Breach. Things really looked up, and in all the years after that I match fish, which was another 30 years pretty much, I had bad draws and times I think made mistakes and got things wrong, but I never had a sustained period of such direness, if you like, from the end of September or start of October right through to January, sort of 4 months of the main part of the season where I must have killed 2 robins, I don't know. But that, lots of match anglers who fished a long time will tell you the same. There's been a period when their confidence goes to rock bottom. They draw the worst pegs going time and time again, and then somehow they lift out of it and they get the draws back, the confidence comes back, their technique comes back, and they're out of it as if it had never happened. One thing I did sort of cotton on to during that period, and I can't remember exactly when it was, is that I started to fish a bit cruder, started to use thicker hook lengths and stronger hooks, not on the canal and things like that, but I did notice or feel that I needed to get that finesse back, and I think that had come back by the summer of '82 when I started to do much better. Anyway, that's it for this one. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's not much of a tale of success, but it just shows you that the luck of the draw, the law of averages, they all intermix, and over a lot of time everyone gets an equal share, so I'm told. That's it for now, and I'll see you soon.